Hey guys, my name is Justin, and today we're going to be looking at some of the things that can be considered as bankruptcy fraud. Now, it's important to know what you can and what you can't do while filing for a bankruptcy so that you don't get in any trouble or have your case potentially dismissed. So keep listening to learn more. This is Ascend Finance's YouTube channel where we try to take complex financial topics and turn them into easier to understand videos. Today, we're going to cover what bankruptcy fraud is, some examples of bankruptcy fraud, and the consequences of committing a potential bankruptcy fraud. Let's get started. Most every year, more than 1 million people in the US file for a bankruptcy. For most people, they'll go through the process without a hitch. They'll honestly report their earnings, debt, assets, and liabilities. However, some people aren't as honest, and they'll try to hide part of their estate or lie about their situation. Bankruptcy fraud is a federal crime and is likened to identity theft, mortgage fraud, and money laundering. Being dishonest in any way can be considered bankruptcy fraud. Now, there are even ways that you may accidentally commit fraud. Though this isn't common, it's easier to avoid if you know exactly what to look for. So let's look at some of the examples of bankruptcy fraud and things you need to know about committing this sort of offense. Let's go over some of the different examples of a potential bankruptcy fraud. Now, hiding assets is one of the most frequently seen forms of bankruptcy fraud. Once somebody realizes they're going to have to file for bankruptcy, it's tempting to consider giving some of your most valuable items to friends and family members to hold on to until you're out of the bankruptcy. This kind of example is very especially true in the case of a Chapter 7, where the trustee may try to liquidate your valuable assets in order to come up with the cash to pay off your creditors. Now, there are bankruptcy exemptions that can protect that, but if they're non-exempt, people may try to get away with it. So because of this, people may think that they can get away with giving their parents some of their expensive jewelry to keep it from being liquidated. Now, hiding assets can be shown in many ways: not listing all of your property, giving your assets away, renting a storage unit under someone else's name to hide your things, and even destroying documents or assets to keep them from the court. Bank trustees are incredibly skilled in making sure they have a total picture of your financial estate, so it is generally pretty hard to hide things from them. Now, you may feel secure asking family and friends to help hide your assets from the courts, but I wouldn't bet on their ability to keep it a secret. Generally, there are thousands of cases of families and friends reporting suspicions of bankruptcy fraud, which takes us to the next thing you need to know about bankruptcy fraud. Here's the deal. Concrete evidence isn't required for a suspicion to be reported or for the case to be sent to the United States trustee. If there is even a hint or suspicion of fraud, the case can be sent in for investigation into the suspicion. Now, these reports can come from anyone, like your bankruptcy trustee, your creditors, your family, your friends, or any other interested party. Because of the seriousness of this offense and the nation's willingness to investigate even just a suspicion of fraud, it would be incredibly difficult to get away with hiding any part of your estate. If you've ever watched any courtroom drama or movie, you know the oath of a witness has to take before testifying on the stand. Now, the oath is extremely serious, and it comes with consequences if it is not upheld. Before testifying, a witness agrees to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. This means that there is no room for lying, even lying by omission or leaving something potentially out. The documents that you fill out when filing for bankruptcy hold the same weight. You're expected to tell the whole truth, all the truth, and nothing but the truth. Now, there is also a possibility that you will have to testify in a court in regard to your estate. You will still be expected to testify under oath. If at any point in this process you lie or withhold relevant information, that you potentially have committed a bankruptcy fraud. While bankruptcy fraud may seem like a minor offense when compared to other illegal activities, there are still severe consequences. Lengthy prison sentences and substantial fines are normal for people who are convicted of committing bankruptcy fraud. In most cases, someone who has committed bankruptcy fraud can potentially look at up to 5 years in prison and a $250,000 fine. And if there is more than one crime, the sentence could potentially be worse. It's safe to say that attempting bankruptcy fraud is not generally worth the consequence of getting caught. In fact, avoiding bankruptcy fraud at all costs seems like generally the best course of action. Oddly enough, simply not lying may not be enough to keep you from committing bankruptcy fraud, which leads us to the last thing you need to know about bankruptcy fraud. Accidental bankruptcy fraud. Believe it or not, you can actually accidentally commit bankruptcy fraud. Even if you think you're being fully honest, if you are unaware of an asset that you own, or you accidentally forget to add an asset onto your bankruptcy schedule, it's very likely to be discovered by your bankruptcy trustee. However, your bankruptcy attorney should help you prevent something like this. Should this happen, they would approach you about the asset potentially. They would investigate the offense and see how it may have happened. Luckily, a legal requirement for bankruptcy fraud is that the individual has to knowingly and fraudulently commit the act. In other words, you're generally not going to go to jail because you forgot to list a ring that's sitting in an old jewelry box. However, that doesn't mean your mistake is without consequence. There is a potential for your case to be dismissed depending on the severity of the missed asset, or if the asset may just be immediately liquidated because it wasn't listed on the bankruptcy forms. When filling out the forms for bankruptcy, it's important to be as thorough as you can be, and especially when you're filling out the forms, you are still signing under oath, which means there are still consequences for any perjury under oath. Now keep this in mind as you begin to assess your estate in preparation for bankruptcy. In all, it's important to realize that bankruptcy fraud is not worth it. Bankruptcy was designed to help you in the long run, so trying to take advantage of the system can lead to a more difficult path to debt relief and a stable financial future. If you submit yourself to the bankruptcy process and commit to working through it, then you should come out on the other side light years ahead of where you started. Continue working hard, and eventually you will be debt-free on your way to financial freedom. We hope that we answered all of your questions about bankruptcy fraud. Now, if we missed something or if you have any other questions, please let us know in the comments down below. As always, be sure to like and subscribe to our channel so you're always up to date on the latest debt relief news. Thanks for watching. Check out our other videos on the bankruptcy process and the bankruptcy alternatives if you'd like to learn more. Thanks so much. I'll talk to you later.